Hey everybody, welcome to the Song Revolution podcast, brought to you by Nashville Christian Songwriters. Nashville Christian Songwriters exists to empower Christian songwriters worldwide. I'm John Chisum, and this podcast exists to bring you valuable songwriting insights, inspiration, interviews, and just all around good fun with some of the greatest songwriters, producers, arrangers, artists, and creatives, and beyond. You can find out a whole lot more about us at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com.
Hey everybody, let me ask you a question. Which are you more afraid of, being rejected by people who might not like your songs, or of not fulfilling this passionate desire that you feel in your heart to communicate your music? Welcome to the show today, where I'm going to be digging into how the fear of rejection is crippling your songwriting and what you can do to stop it right now. I mean, we all feel fear in different areas of our lives, but if you're afraid to show your songs to others or even to write freely like you know you want to, it's time to shift your mindset and get over this crippling fear so you can get on with what you know you're called to do, right? That's what we want for you. So before we get into our coaching for today, though, let me catch you up on just a couple of great things happening around here at NCS. NCS exists to empower you as a Christian songwriter, and we do that by helping you see the real way it's done, the real deal. We're not sugarcoating how hard it is to write at a super high level, and I hope that we're not failing to challenge you to write at the highest level that you possibly can, to invest in yourself to get there. And that's why we have this show, the NCS membership, the NCS weekend intensives, and our premium experience where we work with you up close and personal called the NCS Bootcamp. It's all designed to mentor, coach, and train you at high levels to songwrite like you want to do. So with that in mind, I want to ask you to do two things today for me. First, go read about NCS membership on our site, just right there at NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, and join today if you're not already a member. For the price of a few tacos, you can take massive steps to fulfill your true calling, right? I mean, skip the chips and go deeper into what God's made you passionate about. The second is to take a serious look at hanging out with me and a bunch of amazing music industry folks at the upcoming NCS Weekend Intensive happening right here in Nashville, July 18 through 20. It's just an amazing time. We bring you up close and personal with current influencers, give you personal coaching and teaching, and you get to make some great new friends for life, and we get to make a friend out of you as well. So just jump over to Nashville Christian Songwriters right now and click the intensive link and read about it. It's limited to only 30 songwriters, and I really want you to be one of them. What it costs to come is an investment in yourself that I know you will never regret. Register by July 10 and save $100, and NCS members save even more. So check it out and come hang out with us this summer. Well, let's get to the heart of the show today and try to smoke out one of the worst fears that we humans can have, and that's the fear of rejection. It really is a horrible feeling way down in your gut. It's a very real, tangible, physical feeling that I'm going to talk more about later that can affect a lot of areas in our lives, not just our songwriting. The fear of rejection can affect us in terms of our relationships and the fear we have of losing them, our workplace when we're afraid to speak out or up about something that's unjust, or even in facing our own character defects and being willing to deal with them, which is a kind of self-rejection, if you think of it, that we can be afraid of. So for songwriters, the fear of being rejected means that you fear that your songs are ultimately worthless and no one will ever love or appreciate them, or you for that matter. I mean, just about everyone who writes, sings, teaches, or who has to put their work out for the world to see can suffer from the fear of rejection. It's not just for us songwriters, of course. Certainly the whole human race deals with insecurities on a lot of levels. At some primal level, it goes back to the innate fear of losing our place in the tribe, in the community that we long to be a part of. It comes down to the innate sense of needing to belong that God put in us, to want and need to be part of something greater than ourselves. And when we fear losing it, or worse, fearing that we'll never achieve it in the first place, it wreaks psychological havoc that shuts us up or shuts us down. And we don't want to be embarrassed or ashamed in front of the tribe. tribe. And indeed, public shaming is one of the worst forms of punishment, from the isolation that it brings to the one being ostracized, rejected, and put out of the clan somehow. So the fear of rejection is really the fear of being known for who we are, and the judgment that might come if someone disapproves of us at a very base level. It's visceral, it's built in, it's innate, it's something we just can't escape, though I believe that we can overcome it. Bible teacher Beth Moore, she's an amazing writer, of course. She wrote something about insecurities that is really cool. She said, insecurity refers to a profound sense of self-doubt, a deep feeling of uncertainty about our basic worth and our place in the world. Insecurity is associated with chronic self-consciousness, along with a chronic lack of confidence in ourselves and anxiety about our relationships. The insecure man or woman lives in constant fear of rejection and a deep uncertainty about whether his or her own feelings and desires are legitimate. Sounds like she's been spying in on the music business and all of us songwriters, I think, right? I mean, God himself has created us to desire three things: attention, affirmation, and affection. We just can't change it. It's built in. He knows we all have those kinds of needs, and sometimes it's really hard to tease out pure motivations in songwriting from the need to get this attention, affirmation, and affection from our listeners. I know firsthand, after 42 years in ministry, the struggle that every worship leader and pastor has for their congregations to respond positively each week. If you're a worship leader or pastor listening to me now, you might bristle and with even hearing me say that, but deep down, you know it's true. When your people love you and love what you do, you can easily love yourself. But let just one person come up after church with a negative reaction, and the rest of Sunday is just shot. I've just lived it 1,000 times. And there's some mean people who make it their one aim on Sundays to bring the leadership down. I've been at this a long time, and I know how hard it is to separate yourself from what you do in front of the congregation. And for songwriters, the whole world is the congregation. We're not just trying to gain the love and approval of a small congregation tucked away somewhere in a little town that no one will ever find us in. No, we're just crazy enough and bold enough to believe that God has called us to write songs that the whole world will want to sing. And all is just fine and dandy until our writing, has to be shown to someone. Everything's great up in our heads when we write these songs and we're in love with them, until we have to show our wife or husband or pastor or worship leader our songs, and then things can get a little shaky, right? And it's like we're getting artistically naked and vulnerable and showing people around us who and what we really are in our songs. So how much scarier would it be to show them our songs to a real publishing person who can see right through the fact that we just wrote this yesterday, or that we've just rehashed the same 8 phrases from the last 47 worship songs that we've heard on the radio or sung for about 50 years. I was pitching some songs a while back for some of my NCS bootcamp clients at a major label here in Nashville, and I just was suddenly sweating like really profusely, and my leg wouldn't stop shaking. I mean, you have to realize I've worked at the top levels of publishing for 2 major companies and have written and helped publish hundreds, if not thousands, of songs on products that have been distributed all over the world. And so suddenly I'm like nervous and realizing that I was feeling very, very personal about this thing, that like my own reputation was at stake. So there I was feeling like I was on the line, that I was on the line playing songs that I hadn't even written. Yet I was feeling the fear of rejection because these were my clients, and my ego and my reputation and company success and self-worth and my tribal belonging were suddenly just hanging out there. I mean, honestly, guys, I really wasn't expecting that I would feel that way. And I've yet to fully overcome it, because a lot is on the line when I walk into a major company to represent a songwriter. It is a reflection on me, on my work and my ability to coach you guys to the level of having some songs that a high-level publisher would be interested in hearing and possibly using on a project. I mean, believe me, I want to belong to the tribe as much as the next guy. I've wrestled with the fear of rejection and isolation as much as anyone listening. I think it's a part of what has fueled me to excel rather than shut down. Like, that's our choice here, right? We either let it shut us down and we go hide in a cave, or we get brave and we go after what we say we want. I mean, I just don't see any other choices. In the end, it comes back to headspace and mindset, how we're thinking about this stuff, and the awareness that maybe even childhood rejection, whether real or perceived, is what's driving the bus sometimes of our grown-up inner fears and conflicts. I think that creativity comes back to curiosity and consciousness over and over. When we're living unconsciously, letting those childhood fears and rejections, drive the bus, we're unable to overcome the blocks that are holding us back at a subconscious level. But bringing them to the light again and again gives us the power to overcome just about anything we really want to get victory over. And as we go deeper today, I'm going to share the 2 words that I come back to again and again to remember who I am and to get my head back on straight. But before I do that reveal, let me say that I have the utmost respect for every songwriter out there who is daring enough, brave enough, and filled with enough chutzpah, and go look that up, to share your songs, especially with someone who is going to be gut level honest with you about where you really stand as a creative, as a songwriter, as an artist. One of the hardest leaps to make as a creative and as a songwriter is the one from subjectivity to objectivity. Let me explain that just a little bit. At this point, you probably love your songs a little too much. Something happened, God touched you, and you felt something powerful, and that's what you're trying to express. And that's very, very personal, very intimate for you. You have a lot on the line with that. Or you had a tragedy, a divorce, or a loss of a child, something really terrible, some kind of breakdown, and you're trying to process it in your songs. Or you long to help others feel okay about their own losses, and you're deeply invested in the ministry that you want to bring to the hurting. It's very intimate. It's very personal. Or you have felt an overwhelming urge that you refer to as your call from God to lead people into a deeper place with Him in worship and praise, or to create a new sound because you feel that radio or the music industry isn't hitting it and it's letting the church and the world down. Now, all of that's legitimate, and all of it is very, very real to you. But I'm going to get really honest with you guys. The big breakdown comes when you think everyone else should get it. Now, the truth is that most often they don't. And that's because, are you ready for this? Drum roll, please. They can't. Now, stay with me here because this is the truth and it's good for you. The truth makes you free. So you've got this burden, this legit call that keeps you up at night. When you see people on stage singing their songs, you just want that to be you. When you listen to the radio or see people up on the stage with the big worship ministries, you just know God's called you to do that too. Yeah, there's only one problem with that, and it's not because you don't know the right people in Nashville. The real reason that you're not on the big stage or have the songs on the radio or getting the kind of attention that people like Zach Williams and Lauren Daigle and Casting Crowns and Natalie Grant and all these amazing people that win all the Dove Awards and Grammys and Billboard Awards and all that kind of stuff, it's not because you don't know the right people in Nashville and people just don't recognize how amazing you are. The real problem is that you haven't developed your craft to that level. You just simply haven't invested in yourself to the point that you can walk in, lay down a song that could compete with what these publishing guys and girls are dealing with every single day. I've been there and I know exactly how these publishing execs feel. But both as VP of Publishing at Star Song here in Nashville and in my role as Director of Song Development and Copyrighted Integrity Music, we would receive hundreds of songs a year, hundreds that we called unsolicited material. Now, you may have done it too. You decided one day that you were going to send your song to some big Nashville publishing company, just hoping and praying and crossing your fingers and doing a little dance and twirling a chicken around your head that someone was going to open your envelope, play your song, and then call you up to offer you a contract and get you on the path to songwriting success. Well, admittedly, there are a few weird outliers that happen like that, but that is the rarest of rare exceptions in the music world. You know it yourself. YouTube is flooded with wannabe Justin Biebers hoping to be discovered, and sometimes that happens. But the vast majority of people that you see who are successful at this thing have spent a lot of years developing their musical chops, writing hundreds, if not thousands of songs, and they've put one foot in front of the other, investing over and over and over in themselves to be at the top. So I know. Okay, so that's just the reality. That's the real deal. I told you earlier in the show, we tell you the truth here at NCS. So, okay, some full disclosure here for just a second. I wanted to be Stephen Curtis Chapman. Yes, it's true. Don't judge me. I was so insecure in who I was back in those days that I would sometimes introduce myself at my little concerts as Stephen Curtis Chapman and make some joke about, my hair being similar to him or his or something lame like that. And it'd get a laugh. But somewhere in the back of my mind and somewhere in this little corner of my heart, I would have loved to have been Stephen Curtis Chapman, especially at that time. Most days, okay, not anymore, but he's a great guy. He was writing hit after hit. He had a bus and a band, and all those radio stations played him over and over, and he was just the pinnacle of what I wanted. I wanted that. I wanted that, though it was subtle and, maybe even unnoticed by others. My insecurities in my own calling were spilling out. And you know what? I'm going to gut level honest here, guys. I was guilty of the sin of comparison. At my core, I could even go so far as to accuse God of not making me talented enough to be at Stephen's level of success. Now, believe me, I've repented, but let's be honest, many people suffer with the sin of comparison every day, and it's pretty much what our culture is built on. We're sold to over and over again, are you ready? For the fear of not being enough, which is the same thing as the fear of rejection. Right? That makes perfect sense. If we're not skinny enough or rich enough or pretty enough or have enough in retirement or have flaky skin or whatever, we risk being rejected by the tribe, and we fear the isolation and the unworthy feelings that would bring on. It's all kind of caveman or something, isn't it? So obviously, God made Stephen Curtis Chapman to be Stephen Curtis Chapman and me to be me. I've settled it now, mostly, and I'm just trying to live into the real talents and calling that he's placed in my life. And that brings me to the two words that have brought me tremendous success, if not inner peace in my own life, no matter the difference between Stephen and me. And those two words are gratitude and obedience. Maybe God did, or maybe he didn't give me as much talent or the same kind of talents as he gave Stephen Curtis or anybody else. But he did give me, and he did give you, certain types and certain levels of talent that are uniquely our own. And here's the wonderful thing. He doesn't hold me responsible for anyone else's talent. He never looks at me and says, why, I think John Chisum should be held responsible for all the talent these people listening to his podcast today aren't developing. No, and thank you, God, that you're not doing that. I've got enough on my plate without being responsible for you listeners and all you are or aren't doing. That's just 100% on you. All I can do is lay out what I know and why I know it will help you, and then you have to decide what to do with it. I can build a bridge of knowledge and experience, but only you can cross it for yourself. So gratitude has become an integral part of my success and certainly of my inner peace. By exercising gratitude, I've come to own and appreciate how God has made me and stopped the comparison thing as much as I can. I can still fall into it sometimes, but now I recognize it much more quickly and I stop it because I've learned that it not only shuts me down creatively, it actually makes me feel bad. I mean, for real, I've learned that every thought in my mind has a physiological response in my body. And the more negativity that I entertain for any reason, the worse I feel inside myself, in my very real physical body. I mean, try it right now. If you're not believing me, try this right now. Think about something you're ashamed of in your life, or a memory in which you said or did something that you were ashamed of or embarrassed by, even if it was a lot of years ago. And guess what's going to happen? I mean, try it right now. Think about it. Are you thinking about it? All right, so what happened? If you really thought about something that was embarrassing or you were ashamed of, your face flushed. I mean, you will actually blush right now, even though this event, this memory is from long ago in the past. It's just the way it happens. All right, let's try to turn it positive now. Now think of something that made you very happy, like the day you fell in love or got your first car or got a promotion or just anything big or small that made you feel happy at the time inside. Okay, do it right now. I'm going to give you about a second. All right, you thinking of something? Okay, so what do you feel? You feel happy inside all over again, just like it's happening right now. I mean, right? I mean, it's true. Your very cells all over your body feel the rush of chemicals that your brain just released that make you feel good again. Endorphins and hormones and all kinds of things that I don't even know what they are. They form a chemical bath on the inside of your brain that you feel all over your body. It brightens your smile and puts a twinkle back in your eye and, a little more spring in your step, because thinking happy thoughts and choosing positivity has measurable, tangible results in the physical body. When we remember things or events that are positive or negative, it is as if they're happening right now. They trigger a physiological response in this moment. We say we have a gut feeling or we have a broken heart. And that's because God has designed our spirit, soul, and bodies to be so intertwined that our thoughts become metabolized into feelings in our bodies. It's kind of weird, right? But it's so true. I mean, let someone look at us wrong and we can feel rejected or angry and invisible or hurt or a myriad of feelings in our bodies that can make no sense to our minds. It's a triggered kind of programming, and fear of rejection is all up in that mix somewhere. I mean, somewhere in our past, we weren't chosen for the team, or we were jilted by a boyfriend or a girlfriend or a significant person, authority figure in our lives, or we felt rejected by a group somehow, and that feeling got lodged in our gut. Not just in our memory or our brains, actually lodged in our bodies like muscle memory. And anytime anything even close to the trigger emotion happens, we have an actual physiological response to it that we might recover from in a few seconds, or that might plummet us into a few months of out-and-out depression. So if I let comparison, which is a highly toxic and negative feeling, wanting to be Stephen Curtis Chapman, stay in my mind very long, judging myself as much less than, well, then it gets metabolized and even habituated in my body, and I actually feel it. I can feel sick with envy and jealousy, and all of that can turn into anger and rage and on and on. So it's no wonder that Paul wrote, "Whatsoever things are pure and lovely, think on these things," because he knew thoughts have a direct effect on our bodies and can cause serious illness if left unchecked. Wow, I just got really heavy with all that. So sorry about that. You weren't expecting that on a songwriting show, were you? But I mean, do you get what I'm talking about? This fear stuff is for real, and it's hard to overcome it, but I don't believe it's impossible. Choosing gratitude despite all outer circumstances is the place to start because it brings us back to ourselves. We stop projecting our power outside of our minds and even our bodies, owning who we are and what we are and where we are again, warts and all. And really, it's only then that we can take responsibility for our actions and realize that we're only responsible for ourselves in the eyes of God. And remember that He is expecting us to do something with what He's given us. Man, I've been preaching. I'm out of breath. And Stephen, man, you've done all right, buddy. And we're a better world for you and your songs. I'm grateful for you, and you need to come get on the song revolution. So gratitude leads us to obedience. That's the second word, gratitude and obedience. And just like I was saying, when we come back to the talents and opportunities that God's afforded us individually, we need only think about the next right step, that one next thing that He's prompting us to do, no matter how small a step that we might think it is. Most people I talk to want to jump from being an underdeveloped songwriter or artist to the big stage. And there's way too much fantasy going on that they have the kind of skill to make it big, like right now. Taylor Swift made it, so why can't I, right? Wonderfully talented, but naive and undeveloped songwriters and singer-songwriters get enamored with what they see on the surface and are completely clueless of the millions of dollars that individuals and companies have invested in themselves to be at the highest level. Sometimes people post in our Facebook groups that all you have to do is write to get that hit song out there. But no, guys, that's not right. I know people that have written the same weak song 297 times. And if you're doing the same thing over and over and not getting the results you want, it's time to break the pattern, get out of the rut, get something else going, and write with real knowledge instead of just what you think songwriting is. People get mad at me sometimes in my webinars because one of the first principles I use is stop writing from the heart. And what I really mean, I think you're probably mad. I think somebody just turned me off. But what I really mean is that to succeed, you can't rely on your intuition alone or what you just think makes a great song. You can't afford to not know how the best songs are crafted, actually constructed, built, and not just gushed out in 10 minutes. I spent some time on this in my coaching show 2 weeks ago on creativity, so you can jump back in the archives and catch that one if you want. But let me get back to obedience and your next right step. The question really becomes more around stewardship, becomes something more around stewardship of your gifts. I think you probably know that at some level, but when you put all this in the language of stewardship, it takes on a more manageable tone than the fantasy of me being Stephen Curtis Chapman or of you being whoever it is that you'd rather be than yourself right now. I can't give you any more talent or aptitude than God did, but I can help you develop the talent you have. We help all sorts of people every day become much better songwriters than they were yesterday. People who are very young to people considered chronologically older, but who have just as much to say. And there's more interest in songwriting than ever, and you can see it all over the internet and on TV, like in the new American Idol style songwriting show called Songland. Songwriting is ancient and perennial. It's existed since the garden, and it's never going away. We're commanded to sing a new song over and over in the scriptures and told in Zephaniah that God Himself is singing over us even now. So in many ways, our songs are the responses we feel to God's own song over us, like an echo reverberating in our spirits, because that's where He is, just singing away. So your next step of obedience might be to learn what great songwriting really is and take your craft to the next higher level through our membership, intensives, or even the boot camp. Or it might not be. You have to decide. I always cringe when people tell me they're spending a lot of money to take their songs to a pro-level studio because most of the time that money is going to be wasted. The songwriter is going to flush a whole bunch of good money on underdeveloped songs on a vanity project, and no one's going to really care except maybe him or her and their mom and maybe their dad if he's interested. So they'll be fascinated with their voice or their songs for a short time, but there'll be no lasting impact, guys, because they basically took a devotional song that wasn't really written to be a commercial song to a producer and did something really just for themselves, their ego, rather than writing for real listeners instead. One of my favorite motivational speakers, a lady named Lisa Nichols, says that your gift isn't for you. And I know that's right. Whenever I get it turned around that my gift is my gift and it exists to make me feel good about myself, I know I'm in trouble. And when I get on the phone with a potential songwriting client and they go on and on and on about their call, their gift, their talent, their passion, and how they've been writing since they were 13 and they've had 25 prophetic words about going to the nations, I can just predict that this person isn't going to invest in any kind of training that will help them get to the nations. They don't think they need it. They just have called me to get me to validate their gift, give them a free critique or a leg up in the music business. But like I said in the last coaching show on the most important thing you can do for your songwriting success right now, you've got to take full responsibility for presenting yourself to the world. And it has to be because you've discovered something deeper than the need to be validated. You actually love and care about the people who need your songs the most, and certainly more than for yourself and success. I'm going to give you another little transparent moment here about me. When I first started NCS, I thought it was about me. I thought it was about my gifts, my experience and success that was just waiting for you to take advantage of. I'm really seriously ashamed of the copy I wrote even just a few years ago because it was all me, 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 me. I mean, kind of innocently enough because I didn't understand. I really was just trying to get anyone to pay attention to the fact that I had all this stuff I wanted to download and help, but I didn't know how to do it. And it was me focused instead of you focused. So we've corrected that. Everything we do really is focused on helping you. Yes, I have this experience. Yes, I've had 35 years in this thing. Yes, God has given me a very unique training that I want to bring to you, but it's got to be about you. It's got to be about equipping you. So all we do here is focus on your success, and we work to connect you to your destiny in as much as you and God want us to. And that's our step of obedience. And now it's your turn to decide what your next obedience step may be, and then trust the results to God. The fear of rejection doesn't have to shut you down. The antidote to comparison is gratitude and obedience, and confidence comes when you begin to experience some successes. And successes start to come as you grow in your craft and you begin to get the attention, affirmation, and affection that you've earned by delivering songs that can be truly loved by listeners all over the world. And when we compare ourselves to anyone else, guys, we'll always come up on the losing end. It's just the way it is. I've done over 1,000 potential client calls with NCS over the last 2.5 years, and everyone asks, am I good enough? Well, I've come to believe that that's the wrong question. The real question is, are you called enough? When you take this passion down to its core, you're either doing it because you're trying to find something to help you feel good about yourself, or you're truly trying to be a good steward. And I know that sometimes those get confused, but the sheer tenacity that it takes to be noticed for your art and your songs, I mean, this stuff is competitive. It usually weeds out the motivations. You usually have to kind of come to grips with it, right? And stewardship always comes back to day-to-day choices of obedience. What's the Holy Spirit telling you to do today? For sure, He's not inspiring you to be afraid of what people think. The Holy Spirit is always inspiring you towards God's glory. God is jealous for His own glory. He knows what He wants to do in the earth through you. So, if you're all bound up in what people think, you're never going to fulfill this call. But if you begin to exercise gratitude and obedience, you're going to take some major strides. I mean, the Holy Spirit's not inspiring you to be afraid of what people think, right? I mean, in fact, you need to know what the right people think. And that's why we offer coaching for people wanting to go deeper and further into their calling to write great songs. So I hope this has been very helpful for you today. I know it's brought up some things for me as I've begun to, even just confess and be authentic and transparent about some of these things. Let me give you one more insight before we go and about the fear of rejection. And that is that what we are really fearing isn't rejection itself. It's the fear of rejection. That's what we really fear. I mean, if someone rejects us or judges us, sure, it's going to hurt, but only temporarily. What we're fearing is only the actual fear of experiencing rejection, but never risking having our art experienced, our songs heard, cuts us off from the very thing that will help us grow, and therefore perceived rejection or failure is only a stepping stone to success and the fulfillment of our wish. Did you catch that? I mean, it's kind of deep, but it's like if we don't ever share our songs, we're not going to get the kind of feedback that we need. A lot of times when people come into our boot camp, I teach them on how to receive critique. That's a real art. And if you can learn that, you can grow. I mean, people who claim to be perfectionists, but who never get their work out in order to perfect it are simply delusional. Real perfectionists work very hard at their craft until it is as perfect as it can become. And they do that with feedback and input from others. I mean, if you never write and show your songs, whatever the response you get, you have no opportunity to perfect it. Gratitude and obedience puts us back in a posture of properly stewarding the gifts God has given us, and that's a recipe for success. So one last question before we close up the coaching shop for today. Which are you more afraid of? People not liking your songs or of not fulfilling God's call on your life to write at your highest ability? Time waits for no man, my friends, and today's the day to choose wisely. I'll see you next week.
Hey everybody, I hope that you know by now that we here at Nashville Christian Songwriters are all about empowering you to fulfill your call to become a great Christian songwriter. And the best thing that I think you can do is to join a like-minded community of believing songwriters dedicated to fulfill that call. So I want to invite you to jump over to NashvilleChristianSongwriters.com, even right now, to check out what we call NCS membership, where you can go deeper into all the resources that will kickstart your creativity, unlock hidden songwriting abilities that you didn't even know you had, and take some important steps towards becoming the songwriter that you were born to be. I believe that you were born to be heard, and NCS membership helps you get there. I'll see you next time.